I kind of look at it this way. It's usually like if you go to buy a used car or a vehicle, they show you out the Cadillac first. Not that this is a Cadillac at all, but they show you something like this, and then they bring you out something else that's not quite as bad as what's all in there to get it through. That's usually.
But the question I had for you was, Phil Hare at that town hall meeting was basically saying, I don't really care what you guys think. I'm going to vote for it because I told my dad I would. I just want to know, are you going to do what the people want you to do?
The whole reason I got into this race in the 17th is because I felt as if the people of the 17th's voice was not being heard. And I think it's important, you know, and I can guarantee you this. After I'm elected, when I get into office, if I make decisions, you know, they might not be always the most popular decision, but you will never, ever see me doing a teleconference town hall meeting. Guaranteed.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I was also at that town hall meeting. I asked one of the last questions of Representative Hare. I mentioned, he seemed to not understand why everybody was so skeptical about the government being involved in health care. And I took him back on a little quick history lesson, what happened about 100 years ago in 1909. As you may know, that's when the 16th Amendment got out of both the House and the Senate. The Republicans joined in with that because they thought this was crazy for this to go through. And they said, well, if we put it out as an amendment, there's no way it'll get through 3/4 of the state legislatures. It actually did in 1913. And how they sold it was to get it through, even though it didn't say it in the amendment, they sold it by saying no poor person will ever pay over 1%. And even the hated rich, as much as we hate them, remember the progressive era was really big 100 years ago, as much as we hate those rich people, we would never have them pay more than 10% because God asked for 10%. So we would never even demand of the rich more than what God asks. Well, they started it out within those frameworks, 7% for the rich, 1% for the poor. Well, very soon after this was enacted in 1913, well, we had World War I. What happened then? Well, to help fund World War I, the rich people, they were given another 7. Not 7 plus 7, 77%. The tax rate for the rich, and this is for anybody back there who's making over $100,000. It was up high until Calvin Coolidge brought it down to 20% when he was in power in the 1920s. And then it was low until Herbert Hoover saw that the recession was started and that the income wasn't coming in like it should, and he thought to bring more income, he would raise it up to 55%. Well, he turned a recession into a depression. Well, FDR came in after that, of course, because Hoover was so bad. What did he do? He brought the top rate from 55 to 95. And it didn't really... And that was a total mess. That's how we had the Great Depression. And he seemed very, and it wasn't until Kennedy, whose brother passed away today, who brought it down to 50, and then it got back to 70, and then Reagan brought it down to 28. That's why, and he didn't seem to understand why we were skeptical. Well, if you can lie to the people, and somebody even asked them to take a lie detector test. I mean, we should have asked the people back in I don't even know if they had a lie detector test back then. And that's why the people are skeptical. I mean, there's only 18 items in the U.S. Constitution under Article 1, Section 8 that Congress is allowed to do. And in the Federalist Papers, number 45, Madison said that the federal government's power was going to be finite. And then, as Jefferson was getting back from France, he was concerned that there wasn't a Bill of Rights. And the 10th item in the Bill of Rights that went through, though there was actually 12, but only 10 got through, and the 10th Amendment reserved rights to the states. How does this piece of monstrosity that you have up there come anywhere close to being constitutional? I mean, and at Sarah McCaskill's meeting, she said, well, we all love the military. The government does some good things, the military. Well, that's in the Constitution. And then the post office, even though it loses money, it is in the Constitution for post offices and postal roads. This isn't one of the 18 things that's in the Article 1, Section 8 that Congress can do. And one thing that I suggest, if you do get to Congress, and I hope that you do, I want to save you some time on reading all those bills. Just read the Constitution first. As soon as you come to the point where it's unconstitutional, vote no. That'll save your staff and you a whole lot of time.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering if you could comment, healthcare is 1/8 of our economy, and I haven't heard anybody mention this. I mean, the government just is notorious for running things into the ground. I mean, what about the economic impact of the government just taking over that big of a chunk of our economy? I mean, things are bad right now. I mean, how ugly is it going to get when the economy, that big of a chunk is taken over by a terrible group of managers,
Well, and that's a very good point. In an example you could look at, just a fraction is cash for clunkers. A $3 billion project, you've got people in Texas as of last week, they'd only received 5% of the money that they'd had out. So as to why people would think that the government can come in and take this thing over and run it better than it's being run now. I mean, and this, you'll probably ask me where I got this information. It was somewhere on the internet, but it was backed up. I think it was that 80% of the people out there were happy with their current plan. 54% of the people out there, and it wasn't from Fox News, 54% of the folks out there would prefer that the government just leave their hands off of it. Don't even touch it, leave us alone. I personally believe that this problem can't be fixed by the United States government. It's going to be fixed by the United States people themselves, coming together, sharing ideas, putting things together, and not saying, hey, we're right, you're wrong. It's everybody working together as a country rather than parties. So I have a problem with it also. I mean, when you got $191,000 per American of debt out there right now, and then we want to add more to it, there's a big bubble here that nobody wants to be real about. We're broke. That's all there is. I mean, President Obama even said we're broke. And another thing we need to look at also is the fact that what we would call unfair competition. If the government gets this thing through, they're going to put people out. And the reason why is the government doesn't have to worry about making a profit because they can do one of two things. They can do what they've been doing here and print as much more money as they want and continue to draw inflation up, or they can tax us more. So I think most people out there, even in my business, I mean, we've been taxed enough. I'm at the end of that. So that's very good.